Live from Fargo and serving you on TV, online, and on the go. This is Valley News Live at 10.
Higher property taxes, higher property values rather, usually translate into higher property taxes. The Fargo School District is counting on that as it works on a new budget. School leaders will be going over a preliminary spending plan tomorrow night, and Valley News Team's Katie Opperly zeroes in on how much more money they expect to be dealing with.
There's still a lot of unknowns at this point. Property tax values haven't been finalized. We also aren't quite sure what may happen with some of the state aid.
As district leaders look ahead to the 2020-2021 school year, the budget right now shows a 4% increase in property tax revenue, fueled solely on higher property values for some homeowners.
Taxpayers in the district, to me, the most important piece is we are not levying more mills. So the district is not taxing more. Any additional revenue really is from the value that's assessed by the city and the county.
Not factored into the preliminary budget are federal grant funds, as the allocations have not been finalized. It does include things like projected state revenue and property tax revenue, which works out to be roughly $2 million, money the district didn't have last year.
The funding is needed, I would say. Without some of that increase, we would have to look at things maybe a little differently as well. The same goes on the state side, right? If things would change significantly either way, that has a huge effect on us. Even if the budget's a large number, it's really absorbed by staffing.
GAP says these funds will go toward general education, including staffing and operating costs, curriculum, and supplies. They will also help offset lost revenue.
We're anticipating that we will have a reduction in our transportation aid because school, when it closed in March of this year, that is what we're paid on. And so we were missing about a third of the year of school.
The budget is in its early stages, but it has to be finalized by October. As with most budgets, GAP says there will be changes to come. In Fargo, Katie Opperly, Valley News Live.
At this point, the district's budget calls for spending a little over $164 million, which is up about $5 million from a year ago. The school board meets tomorrow afternoon. We'll continue to follow this story. Speaking of taxes, in April, North Dakota saw a 500% increase in online sales tax revenue because more people were staying at home and shopping. Tax Commissioner Ryan Rauschenberger says last year, North Dakota took in $500,000 in April. In 2020, that number increased to almost $3 million. One of the big questions facing the state moving forward is how much people continue to spend online throughout the rest of the year.
Even though we as a state and the local governments may collect as much sales tax off that sale, whether it's online or at your local store, the big question is how much money is staying in our local economy.
Rauschenberger says if shoppers return to brick and mortar stores, those numbers have a multiplying effect on the state's economy, impacting things like employment, income taxes, and other sales tax types. The tax commissioner says overall sales tax revenue was down about 35% in April. The search continues tonight for a hit-and-run driver. A crash happened at 1 a.m. at an intersection of 16th Street and 9th Avenue South in Fargo. Police say the first driver was speeding down 16th Street, ran a stop sign, and crashed into the second car. When authorities arrived, they had to save the second driver from their vehicle. The other driver took off. A new normal for music lovers starts this week in the Valley as 2 drive-in concerts are planned on both sides of the river. Post-Traumatic Funk Syndrome is set to play on Thursday night at the TAC venue in Dilworth. Concert goers will be able to sing along from their cars.
You're not stuck in your car if you buy a parking pass. You'll be able to, we have chairs, you'll be able to sit next to your vehicle, dance and hang out with the people you came with. We just ask that you stay with your circle that you came with.
Garth Brooks' virtual drive-in concert will be broadcast at the Red River Valley Fairgrounds on Saturday night, with both venues saying the show will go on, rain or shine. And for ticket prices or more information on this week's concerts, head to our VNL News app and click on this story. North Dakota is reporting 25 new positive cases of COVID-19 in the state from the over 1,200 people tested. Nearly 3,000 people are listed as recovered, and the state now has 284 active cases. The death toll, meanwhile, linked to the virus remains at 77. Minnesota has reported 4 COVID-19 related deaths today, bringing the state's total to 1,384. Overall, another 308 new positives are being reported. The state's active case count is now at 2,778. Minnesota's special session came to a halt over the weekend without lawmakers passing any of the major bills that both sides were hoping for. The debate around police reform received a lot of attention. Esme Murphy explains that there was no deal reached on distributing $841 million in COVID-19 relief.
Mayor Sean Dowse of Red Wing has this message for the legislature.
Please get the bonding bill done as soon as you can.
Dowse is counting on $10 million for a bridge to go over the railroad tracks to the island that is home to, among other things, Treasure Island Casino. No bridge means delays waiting for trains for thousands of motorists as well as first responders.
It's been ranked as one of the top 3 projects in the state of Minnesota by the Department of Transportation.
Red Wing is also counting on some $800,000 in coronavirus aid.
Get that out to the greater Minnesota because Red Wing is not unique. Towns all across Minnesota need that money.
In a sign of how badly communities need the COVID-19 money, House Minority Leader Kurt Daudt co-wrote a letter asking the governor to go ahead and hand out the $840 million.
We've asked the governor to start the process of spending that without the legislature.
And while Daudt has previously blocked a bonding agreement, he thinks it can still happen.
I'm confident that we will have a bonding bill that will have a sizable investment into our infrastructure all across the state of Minnesota.
The governor says he's also optimistic about eventually getting a bonding bill, and his office says he's studying how to allocate that COVID-19 money right now. Sometime later this week, the governor is expected to announce the dates for another special session, which means the legislature will have yet a third chance to pass all those critical bills.
The governor will have to call the legislature back into special session by July 12th if he wants to extend his emergency powers for COVID-19. Several civil rights groups say that they're not happy with how Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is planning to address police accountability in that city. Several leaders of civil rights activist groups came together to say they do not want Frey to turn police reform and accountability over to the Minneapolis Foundation. It's led by former Mayor R.T. Rybeck. Civil leaders say Rybeck's foundation doesn't have the expertise on police brutality.
Many of those officers who killed people under R.T. Rybeck's watch are still on the force to this day.
We are saying to R.T. Rybeck and his supporters that you have failed us, and we will not allow your failure to continue, because you're not an expert, neither you're actually the exact reason why we are in this situation.
Groups want a civilian council of community members to have power and make decisions when it comes to police accountability, emphasizing that they want this council to be made up of people of color. A renewed effort to put up a memorial for a black man lynched in North Dakota is off to a good start. The hanging of Charges Thurber off the Great Northern Railroad Bridge in Grand Forks took place in 1882. He was accused of attempted rape, but his accusers later admitted to lying about the incident. A GoFundMe page has raised more than $3,000 in less than 22 hours. And it's hoped that once the monument is built, a community memorial service for Thurber can be held. Grand Forks first approved the project back in 1997, but the flood forced funds to be used elsewhere.